the legislative branch is the one that actually controls all of that. Like you can't look at the executive branch and be like, what is the president going to change? You need to get out and vote for these senators and flip to Congress so that we can get these laws so the CRAACA Act can actually get passed. And I actually got a name for it. It's Continuously Raising African Americans Culture Act. That is it. It's the CRAACA Act.
What up? It's Three Brothers No Sense. I am Tavares Ferguson, a.k.a. Ferg, joined my co-host Buff and Razi. But we have a special guest with us tonight on this political episode, the day after the election. I guess I can call it the day after election. We have Frank Turner. He is Byron's, I guess, better half when he moonlights on, I don't even know how to explain it anymore, Byron. He'd be cheating on us.
Well, actually, I would be cheating on him because he and I started first. But we've mentioned this show a couple of times on Three Brothers, politically entertaining. And, you know, since we're going to be talking politics, we brought my brother Frank Turner in, who co-hosts Politically Entertaining with me. Frank, speak to the people, man. What's on your mind?
Man, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I love what you guys are doing. Just bringing a great voice, great energy to many topics that people are sometimes afraid to discuss or don't know how to discuss. And you guys bring, as we talked before, called levity to certain things, but also a seriousness that in this time, as we're going to get into in just a few minutes, we need to have, right? We need to have a certain serious and understanding. Obviously, Byron, we talked about this many times, you know, what is going on the day after the election. I think, you know, just it's amazing, right? What we're seeing from this country. And I guess, just starting there, it's like mentally and just keeping 100 as a Black person, you're like, okay, what's going to happen and what does it mean? Because it's not that you're afraid, but just like, what Black people are used to moving, you know, code switching, right? We're adept at that.
Code switching. Yeah.
And so we're looking at the country and we're saying, you go back 12 years. And I remember 12 years ago when President Obama won, and I remember how excited I was. I remember thinking, this is going to turn everything around. Like, and that was, you know, probably very naive. I was only 26, 27 at the time. So forgive me guys for that. But I was very excited over Obama's first election. And then, you know, by the time he departed, you know, a little bit mixed in some areas, but still was happy that I voted twice for the first Black president of the United States. But the thing that really hurt me coming into 2016 was the first Black president was succeeded by a man who said he wasn't even a citizen. And
it was pushback. It was pushback. But listen, don't get your hot takes in first. Yeah.
Sorry,
we gonna get into that.
No, I was vibing. I'm like, I feel you.
Okay.
I feel you. So Frank, it's good to have you. You know, so Frank and I go way back. He was my partner in crime on the track team. He was way more dedicated than I was, man. I wish I had your dedication. Like when it got cold, I'm like, ooh. We still got to go out here and run.
But shout out to you, man. You had a great. I still remember your 400 in it was a freshman year, and you were one of the few freshmen who actually qualified for state. So congratulations again on that.
Appreciate it.
And you were trailing pretty badly in the race, I remember everybody was like, people just started walking away, and I remember thinking that's just rude. Like he might come back, and I remember, and I thought that in my mind, I didn't say it to anybody because people would just, you know, Black people, we just be like, he getting beat, and I just stood there, and he just kept running, and either everybody slowed down, or he started running faster. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember him finishing with like one of the most powerful kicks that I've seen. I was like, that would have won an Olympic race. So congratulations. I still remember that. That was a great moment.
I remember that, Frank. I remember coming around that curve, seeing you standing by the gate. And it was, what happened was, you know, by that time people were giving me pointers on how to finish. Like, well, don't you give out too early. Like you put up too much in the beginning and you lose at the end. So save it. So I was trying to save myself, and I look up in this state, and I'm getting my doors blown, and I'm like, well, here goes nothing. And I literally come around that curve, and I see people walking away. I'm like, God, they gave up on the kids. And Frank was the only person there leaning against the gate, still cheering, and I just pushed. Now, not only were you there for me at the gate, I don't know if you remember, like, as soon as I crossed the finish line, I collapsed. Like, I was done. I don't even think, like, I ran 400 meters, not 401, not 402, not 399. I ran 400 meters, crawled off the track, and laid there for like 20 minutes. I don't even think Frank, you might have went and got my medal. Like,
I don't remember, but I do remember you were. I was like, man, he's hurt, but I knew you were alive because you were breathing, so I just let you sit there because it's like, what are you gonna do when somebody's? That's the thing about track is when somebody collapses after they're really tired. If they're not dead, there's really nothing you can do. Nope. You do want them to get up. At the end of the day, it's like, bro, he's exhausted. So, that was a great memory. So it's just because it's crazy because I was. Oh man, how many years ago? That was 25, 24.
That was 96. We came in freshman year, so that was
so 24 years ago. So man, okay.
Frank, you can't be dating us like that, man. That's how far we all go back. Yeah, I mean, we go back to middle school, so even before then.
Jesus.
So yeah, been friends a long time, man. Yeah. So great to have you on.
Thank you.
And I liked him before I liked you, Razi, because I didn't like Razi.
I believe it.
Frank was cool. I didn't like you in the beginning.
That's cool, man. Frank, I remember Frank introduced me to the Notorious B.I.G. Remember that party you had at the house? And I swear, when Big Papa came on, that was the first time we heard it. We rewound that thing 4 or 5 times, just like play it back, run it back, run it back. Man, this is hot. So yes, Frank was way cooler than me in middle school and going into high school.
Yeah, you're an asshole. I don't like it. Before we get too much on Frank, fellas, what's going on in your world? What's on your mind?
I mean, at my job, we just kind of like at the ready. I guess we're expecting people to be extremely upset, but most of the action is taking place down at near the White House at the Capitol. It's all good. People riding their bikes and jogging. So, but we're prepared and ready. But other than that, man, not much, man. Just a lot of thinking you're getting off at one time and you're getting held an extra 8 hours and stuff, man. So it's just, I'm ready for all this to be over and back to normal.
Is it going to go back to normal though?
Well, as far as my work schedule, politics. We'll talk about that.
It's probably going to go back to normal. If the Democrats had won the Senate, though, I think your work schedule would have got real crazy over the lame duck season because the Republicans would have been scrambling to get anything they could through. But now that they're maintaining their majority right now, there's still a chance. When you guys listen, we'll know for sure. But for now, there's still a chance, and we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But for me, man, it's the same thing. I'm ready for this normalcy. I'm ready to be proud of America on an international stage again. That's one of the things that it's really been lacking over the last 4 years. Like Ferg, you talked about, we went to France and they literally laughed at us. It's like, what is y'all president doing? Like I want to be able to go and travel again, and people look to the United States as the spot they want to be, and look up to us like, oh yeah, you guys are coming from a good spot.
Do you think you're gonna be proud again? I think that's a stretch still. I think as close as
I'm Captain America at heart, so I'm black suit, dark Captain America right now. So eventually I'll come back.
We can't expunge Trump from our record. Like America has shown me their hand, but that's a whole nother scenario. Well, for me, I'm feeling a little more energized than I have. I actually took today off. I think I've been saying that for the last few weeks. I just needed to take today off, decompress. I was hoping that we would have a result by sometime tonight, which still may or may not happen, but I needed today off. I couldn't. Frank, you talked about code switching in the beginning. I didn't want to do that today. I wanted to be anxious, angry, frustrated Black man and not have to worry about who I offended, who I needed to code switch for or shift my tone for. I just want to be me. And I didn't even sit around watching the election all day. I took some naps, worked out, had a few drinks, and, spent time with the family. But I just needed today to be, regardless of what the result was, I needed today to be the beginning of something new, even if it's, the same old thing. It's going to be we don't talk politics, not politics, but we don't have to worry about an election for the next 4 years or a presidential election for the next 4 years, because if we have Trump, we know what we're up against. And so I just wanted to start off new with that, or, hey, maybe this is the beginning of better days, which I don't think Biden could do any worse than what Agent Orange has done. So.
Oh, and to the listeners, just to let you guys know, we're recording on Wednesday the 4th, the day after the election.
Oh, good shit. Thank you.
So, yeah, just so you guys know what day and why. What we planned on doing with this is we were able to kind of say what had happened and give clear, results and talk about it and discuss it. And, it totally messed up our plans. So one more thing that they screwed up with this election. But, it is what it is.
You know what? Enough beating around the bush. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's go ahead and pay some bills first. And then we're going to come back and we're about to join in. We're about to talk about it.
Let's do it.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
All right, we're back. Three brothers, no sense, with a dash of PE. And then with Frank. I'm excited about this episode. I think we're going to get into it. As you know, like I said, we have both sides of politically entertaining on here, so it's going to be a good episode. Hopefully, we'll learn something. I feel like I'm going to be the odd man out on a lot of things just because that's how I usually am. But Frank, can you open us up with a question? What do you want to talk about today?
So, one of the things that's coming out, obviously the election still hasn't been called. It's still very close. You still got stuff. I think right now you still got Arizona still apparently up for grabs, depending on, what site you listen to. But one of the things that's coming out of exit polls is Black men apparently did much better in 2020 with Donald Trump. And so I want to just talk about, obviously Donald Trump was running for president, but I want to talk about where Donald Trump fits in the context of the Black community, because I think it's an interesting conversation, and I want to frame it kind of like this. Donald Trump, and like I said, I'm a little bit older, and I don't really listen to much hip hop anymore, but I used to, and Razi knows, we used to have a bunch of No Limit CDs and all that, and so throughout the course of history, Donald Trump is probably the most mentioned mogul, at least from a white guy standpoint, in hip hop music. Like you hear money like Donald Trump, this like Donald Trump. Like, so Donald Trump has, whether for good or bad, is a known commodity, right? Like he's known, and in some ways was respected for his money, for his opulence. Like you think of Lifestyle Solution and Famous, I think of Robin Leach, and I think of Donald Trump. I'm like, was anybody else on the show? There was the host, and then there was, Donald Trump. And so when you have this context, you're like, well, how can Black people vote for Donald Trump? And I'm like, well, Donald Trump has been a fixture, not saying he's a friend, I'm saying he's been a fixture. And so I think there's a familiarity with him that shouldn't, that's as much surprise maybe us that people are voting for him from a standpoint of he's able to make the argument, hey, what have Democrats done for you? Hey, they signed the crime bill, those kind of things. So he's using some at least some decent arguments, not saying he's doing a great job for Black people, but he's also, able to do, I think because the standard's been so low, he's actually been able to come in and do some things, unfortunately, that have been like, hey, maybe he is for us. But I think Donald Trump, if anything, is an opportunist, right? I don't necessarily think I wouldn't come on here and say he loves black people. What I say, he's an opportunist to say, oh, guess what? Oh, they haven't permanently funded HBCUs. I can do that. Like little low wins, right? That should have been done. That or criminal justice reform, or the First Step Act, things that are common sense things. He's just like, oh, I'll do that, but it's not really necessarily the big moves we need. And the question is, I guess, if let's say Donald Trump wins, or just even by the number of votes he got, the type of rhetoric and things he was doing was appealing. Is there a path forward to Black people, Black males in the Republican Party, and how can we get our agenda heard and listened to in a way that would be beneficial? Is that possible? Did Donald Trump open that door for us, or is it just a mirage where he was trying to get votes, to try to bolster his reelection claim?
That's a lot. That's a lot to unpack. So I'll try to take a little bit in pieces, right? So why Black men vote for Trump? And for that part, I agree with you on he has been a fixture in Black media for so long, the familiarity of it all, the disinformation that has gone out, the QAnon or whatever it's called, theories about Joe Biden being a pedophile and all that. Like that, there is so much stuff that affected, especially like Miami. We lost Florida because of Miami, basically. And it was a huge disinformation campaign down there. So there's a lot going on, and there's a huge dynamic there. And when you talk about, did he open up the Republican Party to Black people? I don't think so. Because what he did is he threw bones to the hoteps of the world. The people that can't think, the Black people that talk about systemic racism so much but don't understand it is what it really annoys me. It's like they talk about Obama didn't do anything for Black people when Obama did a lot to try to undo systemic racism. The problem is there was nothing that said, hey, Black people, this is for you. And Trump took the total opposite, right? He deeper ingrained systemic racism, said that it didn't exist, denied it, but then said, hey, Black people, here's this shiny platinum plan for you that really isn't going to do anything. I'll permanently fund HBCUs, but at the same time, I'll try to bring HBCU funding into the White House. So now it can't be allocated by Congress. So that means that any president can switch it up any way they want to. So the things that he was doing really weren't helpful. What it was I'm going to give you this bone, the same thing he did with the tax cuts for the middle class. Oh, that expires in 7 years or 10 years, but I'm going to make these the corporate America tax cuts permanent. So it's one of those things that he did just enough to get them on board. And then that was it. That was what it was going to be. But there was nothing systemic that was going to really affect us and really help us.
I don't think I don't think Joe lost Florida because of Miami. I mean, he won Miami. I guess you're saying that he didn't run it up enough in Miami. And that's certainly not because of Black people. That's because of the Cuban population. And we just got to give Trump some credit on that part. He really targeted Cuban Americans down there and painted Joe Biden as they compared him a lot to Castro and to Hugo Chavez. Those are socialist, and that's two things that Cuban Americans do not mess around with. So, and they've always been up for grabs since 2000. They got pissed at the whole Elian Gonzalez thing and turned on Al Gore and voted for Bush. But I also think you're giving the hoteps of the world too much credit. They ain't read no damn platinum plan. They not. We have to look at it like this. There are far too many, and let me start off by saying that men in general think this way, but we're talking specifically about Black men. There are far too many Black men that praise misogyny. And we're talking about hip hop music. What's the number one thing they promote? Misogyny. So I don't think I know a lot of people got mad at Lil Wayne. We talked about this the last episode, got mad at Ice Cube and all that. I don't think people say, oh, man, Lil Wayne took a picture with Trump. I guess I'm going to vote for him now. No, but to me, I don't think those rappers move the needle at all. Trump talks that misogynist talk. He talks that talk. He carries himself that way. When that tape came out on the bus, that should have ended not only his political career, that should have ended his business career when he said he grabs and you can do whatever you want to him. But a lot of men think that's so. We still have men today that don't think it's a big deal to grab a woman's ass at a party or something. They think that's fine. She shouldn't have wore that. I mean, I couldn't help but grab it. So they relate to Trump. And it's time that we just start admitting that it doesn't have anything to do with a whole lot of intellectual things. Now, there are some black men that own a business or whatever, and they probably liked his tax plan better or whatever, or thought that his tax plan would be more friendly to them than Joe Biden's was. But at the end of the day, it's patriarchy, it's misogyny. Trump personifies both of those things. And some of what Razi said is true. You know, the hotels, they look at Joe Biden. He wrote the crime bill. That's all they can say. He wrote the crime bill. Never mentioning that so many people were for that bill, the Congressional Black Caucus, prominent black communities. Crime was rampant. People wanted to. It
sounds good on paper.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's easy for us to. We can criticize it now, but something wanted to be done. People wanted something to be done about it. And that's all it was to it. So that's where I come from with it. And if you look at it too, since 2012, it's been slowly trending. Like this whole thing with black males voting Republican, it's been slowly trending before Trump. Now, Trump, I think, got a bigger boost than Mitt Romney did or whatever, but it's been trending that way and it's continuing. The fact that he almost got 20%, I think the number is like 18% now, that's mind-boggling, that's troubling, and it needs to be addressed. If I'm a member of the Democratic Party, I need to try to figure out why black men, 2 out of 10, are choosing the Republican Party over my party.
I'm glad you asked that question, Frank, because that's actually a question that's been on my mind all day. And the reason, and I'm going to take it from a more of maybe a psychological point than a political point. My question was more so like, what have I learned about us during this election? And the first thing I learned is the average black voter is no smarter than any other voter. Like, we, just like everybody else, vote against our own interests. Not only do we do that, I think part of it is we vote against, if we do vote for our interests, because like Byron said, there are some business owners and stuff like that are like, hey, I need these tax cuts. They're going to do it at the expense of other people. Screw you. This is what I need. And hey, get it how you live. I think Trump, a lot of it's street cred. Like, the average person doesn't research. There is street cred. It's street cred, familiarity, and what's popping. Like, they're going to go off of what they hear. They're not going to do any research. They're not going to find out anything for themselves. And maybe Lil Wayne, maybe Kanye, maybe Ice Cube, maybe all these people that maybe just a little bit of what Ice Cube said, or a little bit of what Kanye said, a little bit of what Lil Wayne said, and stuck with them just enough to make them decide to vote against what's best for, and I hate to say, the majority of blacks, or the majority of people like themselves. For me, I think pretty much everybody on this platform financially probably would benefit from Trump just from the stock market itself. He has kept the economy, whichever word you want to use in his world, because he uses those words synonymously. But I don't know. I think it's just we give this guy too much credit. I remember growing up, Trump was the average black man's dream. They wanted to be Donald Trump. Like, if you'd have told me in 2000, outside of, I probably chose Trump over Bill Gates or somebody who made more money than him, just because Trump had money. He was flashy and he was cool. Like you knew his name. And I think people just related to them. They voted for Trump because he's who they wanted to be. And when I started really looking at him, like, man, a lot of these people just voted despite what everybody else around them needed or wanted or felt. They prioritize or deprioritize. It's not even about prioritizing certain things. I think we talked about this a couple of shows ago. It was like, yeah, this would benefit me, but your systematic racism that you don't believe in and these other things detracts from us as a whole. And I can't. You stepped over the racist boundary just a little much. Too much. I can't support you. Like for people to turn a blind eye on that, for black men to turn a blind eye on that, helps me understand why black men turn a blind eye to so many other things. I honestly see why black women recently have saying black men don't support us, black men don't protect us, because this is just another check in that box. It's like, you know what? Everybody you're around you saying that this man is evil. Take Trump out of it. Think about his supporters, the pandemic, how he's affecting this country. But yet and still, you were able to say, that doesn't matter. I'm still going to vote for him. I see why women don't, black women like black men don't care about us. I'm like, well, even though it's not the majority but those same 2 out of 10, Byron, are probably the same 2 out of 10 that really are the guys that don't support him. And I think, and my last point is, I realize because I pretty much deleted a lot of my white Trump friend supporters first go round, that the people I was arguing with or debating with were all black males.
Wow.
I don't think I debated about, like I know black women that might have had some angst against Trump and, but at the end of the day, they still went and voted. They still, but they weren't trying to down Byron or Frank or Razi or Ferg for voting for Trump, making you feel like you're stupid. Like, I think they were trying to be too smart for their own good. Those are the whole tips you were talking about, Razi. Your Dr. Umar supporters. Yeah. But I can't really think about 99% of the people I talked to who were pro-Trump were black men. Like, I can't really think about that many women I heard say the same thing. And then it was the same thing when it came to Kamala. It was black men trying to. Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started on that. That's just us. Like, to me, it's more psychological. Like, is that the same people who, because you think about black women for the most part, when they galvanize behind something, good, bad, or indifferent, they stick with it. They support it. Us, on the other hand, we're kind of like, well, let me tell you all the reasons I'm not going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, but my thing is, why do we try to make black Americans, African Americans, a monolith? Like, we're mad about the 16%, 17% that said screw us and screw the black community. We're going for ourselves. But it's the same thing. It's really no different than we're treating them like white people treat white Democrats. It's you guys are saying screw your white heritage and your white privilege, and you're trying to fight for equality for other people, basically. So my thing is, I don't too much worry about that 16%. They're lost. They're lost, and the thing about it is, I don't think we're getting them back. To coin.
That's my point, though. Like, I think these are the same people.
Those jobs aren't coming back. I don't think those folks are coming back.
And that's my point.
Maybe to your point, maybe the Republicans have kind of gotten those guys up under them, because I could see them voting Republican in the future.
They're not even catering to them. They're not even catering to them.
They're not.
I've got one more angle that you guys haven't touched on, and it's something I do a lot with Byron. Byron probably is like, oh my God, here he goes. He knows what I'm about to do. There is a religious aspect to, even though Trump is not a Christian, he's not, he holds the Bible upside down. So it's like, sir, and he said 2 Corinthians as if it was, a currency. It's like, bro, it's a chapter in the Bible, but that's okay. But so what I've seen is I've seen people who go to my church, who I know personally who have gotten very militant with the whole, oh my God, if you vote for Biden and Harris, you guys are baby killers, right? So there's a lot of utilitarianism from a standpoint. People get caught in this pro-life. And the problem with that, there's like a false equivalency, because what people don't realize is, one, abortions have been happening since ancient Rome. And then Roe v. Wade didn't invent abortion. And also, if you guys don't know who Paul Weyrich is, look him up. He's dead, but Paul Weyrich and Jerry Falwell Sr. invented the moral majority and rode the back of Ronald Reagan, who was a pagan, right, and Nancy Reagan, and created a voting bloc from Christians, which became evangelicals, around the pro-life movement. Paul Weyrich came in and tried to figure out different issues which he could galvanize Christians to vote in a bloc, and he found it in pro-life, because when Roe v. Wade happened in the 60s and early 70s, Christians, who identify as Christians, right, they just looked at it and said, okay, we vote on who the best candidate is, or the issue that may affect others, or what makes sense, the best person, the best candidate, character, all this. So the problem is there's a lot of black men who have been galvanized into this, especially men who are new to the faith in Christ, and say, well, I got to be able to marry my faith in God to politics. And that's completely, separate. It could be two completely separate things, because one is, you can't define God in a political party, right? That would be insane, because then he wouldn't be God. Like, if I could define God completely as a Republican or Democrat, then I'd be completely missing the mark. But that's part of the problem with the right-wing America, is they first have been so long being comfortable marrying their politics and religion together that they are so certain they have the right answer, which is why it's so hard to convince them of white privilege, of, systemic racism, because they just think that if you try harder, if you pray harder, things will manifest, things will just happen. And it's just like, that's not really how it works. But going back to the point about black men, there's a lot of black men who almost feel obligated now to vote conservatively, because they're saying, well, I believe in God and I don't believe in, abortion is bad. And, I gotta, and they have this image of like women who are just like sucking fetuses out of their stomach with a vacuum cleaner. It's like, that's really not how this works. And a lot of people don't understand is, you go look at Guttmacher, this Guttmacher, Guttmacher study, 2010 to 2017 or 2018, abortion has gone down nationwide. And guess who was the president? President Obama. And I'm not giving this to Obama. What I'm saying is abortions have gone down because healthcare was better. People had access to contraception. People had access to education, understanding how often they can get pregnant. Like, hey, I'm ovulating. Oh, like people actually don't know this stuff. So people actually got information, read it, figured out how not to get pregnant as often, because you know what? People don't want to kill their babies.
Yeah. And I think that shows a little bit of growth in the black community, that we have these different blocks. And so I think I got to push
back on that, though. Like you said, you don't see why we have an issue with people that vote that way. So there's a difference in me being mad at you voting for a particular party because of their tax plan or something like that. But when you have a man, we've been through this list over and over. When you have a man,
it's not the average, that
called for the death penalty of 5 innocent black men, and when it was proven that they were innocent, he didn't recant. When you have a man that had housing discrimination issues against black people, when you have a man that has said the things that he's said and done the things that he's done, and then you have someone that supports him when he is proven and shown that he cares nothing about your race. It takes him 3 days to denounce the Klan. He calls Nazis good people on that side as well. Then, yeah, you're going to have some emotion on why in the hell would you vote for that guy. So I don't think it's not so much necessarily that people vote Republican or whatever, but voting for Trump, you got some explaining to do, and yeah, you're going to get that emotion from people.
Perfect, because Trump is an anomaly, dude. Like, we've never, I'll be 40 in a month, in my lifetime have I seen the country this divided. Like, it's a reason it's divided. Like, let's be honest. It's a reason it's divided. People feel this. I don't think people have felt this strongly about a candidate,
one way or the other, right?
Like really this strongly about a candidate. And when the people that feel strongly, like that love them, it's scary to see. We all loved Obama. We weren't driving around with Obama flags ready to fight, starting Obama groups like we will take out the world if this happens. It's like, man, I hope that nigga get a second term.
I mean, but they were doing that then, hanging effigies, and so the thing is, the stuff that they're doing now is the same things they were doing back then. It's just they were doing it towards Obama.
They led up to Trump. You're talking about against Obama.
Yeah.
But that led up to Trump. What I'm saying is this is a different day and age. This is when you were talking about being proud. All this, it's going to take a while for me to bounce back on being proud of America, because like we already did it, like we already, we've done the deed, like you can't just, this isn't the church. You can't just repent like, all right, we did 3 Hail Marys and got rid of Trump, so now we're good again. No, this is still going on. There's still Proud Boys. There's still people. There are people who aren't going to work or not leaving their house this week because they're scared of the repercussions that might happen if once Trump loses. Like, that's not the norm. Like, we have how many lawsuits going on right now? Like 5 lawsuits in 5 states because the president doesn't want to believe that he could potentially lose. This isn't a norm. Side note, Frank, I think birth control abortions went down. I think 2008, 2010 is when Plan B really started jumping. So that hit the streets real hard. And that's when, side note, just wanted y'all to think about that. I think Plan B stopped a lot of...
That's a form of misogyny, by the way, too, because you talked a lot about abortion, too. There is no political party that truly cares about being pro-life. Okay, the Republican Party owns that argument, but again,
beat them to the punch.
You look at a congressman like Steve Gelardis, I can't even say his name, Steve Gelardis from Tennessee, who had his mistress get an abortion, right? But he supported all kinds of bills that were for abortion. But when his mistress got pregnant, you can't have that baby. Oh no.
Yeah.
So nationally, like if it's you, then you can't get an abortion. But if it happens to one of them, and it's not in the situation that they want it to be, then abortions are okay. So no party owns that. Basically, what they want to do is just control a woman's body and control the decision on what a woman does. It has nothing to do with pro-life, because you brought it up in your answer, Frank, and I think, Razi, you touched on it. They don't give a damn about, like, when an unarmed black man gets killed, they give us every reason in the world why we shouldn't care. He was on drugs. He had a record. He committed a crime 3 years ago. Trayvon Martin smoked weed in high school. Stop the presses. A high school student smoked weed, and he deserved to get killed.
Yeah.
So they give us every excuse on why that's okay. So there is nothing pro-life about any party. It's just about which party wants to control women.
And when you throw in the church, especially black men in the church, because we're talking specifically about black men, I generally think we're talking about the older generation, because I feel like our generation as a whole, black men our age, for the most part, have, for lack of better terms, turned away from the church in mass. And not necessarily like they're atheists or whatever. They're not into traditional and organized religions like the generations of the past. So most of these older these black men you're talking about, I'm assuming, are older, which I think if you do the research,
actually, some of them are young. There's a younger generation that, when I say younger, I mean like our age, not like super, but like
middle aged.
Like middle aged. But I mean, I agree with you. There are older, but there's just a sect of conservatism in black, like
black people. We're the most conservative group out there. Like,
exactly.
Let's be honest. If politics wasn't in play, black people as a whole are one of the most conservative groups out there, especially black men.
Yeah,
because conservatism it keeps the patriarchy alive. And let's be honest, the church for the most part is founded on patriarchy.
We are like, so you remember Obamacare, right? How everybody was so-called against Obamacare. And then you just ask the individual questions. Well, do you think this should be? Yeah. That's what Obamacare is. So like, if you ask the black person individually what the so-called Republican conservative platform was, they would agree with most of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it sounds good on paper because, once again, it's what's on paper and what's really going on in life. So all that same thing you were saying is like the senator that had his mistress get an abortion. I guarantee these same black men not necessarily have had abortions, but they know people close to them that have had abortions, or, I'll just talk about this really quickly because I'm pro-choice, but I'm pro-life when it comes to my household. However, and I'm opening up a little bit, is because of what my wife and I went through on our last pregnancy, actually our last two pregnancies, one which we actually carried to full term and had my son. It's dangers in pregnancy that we don't talk about, especially in the Black community with our Black women. Like, they have the highest mortality rate out there. 1 in 4 women have miscarriages. Like, it's like, I know somebody right now who is debating, him and his wife are debating what they're going to do right now, not because they actually want to have a child, but at the same time, they're really thinking about, will his wife survive? And that's a decision that should be left up to that family. Damn any politics in that. That's something like, because they have kids. So you're saying, let's roll the dice. My wife has a high probability of having complications. Roll the dice, potentially losing the wife's life, and leave the husband with a widower with raising 2 young kids. Like, we don't talk about those real situations. We want to go to, like, somebody got raped, or this young promiscuous teenager who, like, no, it was, that's a whole other conversation. But there's so many sides to that. We can get to politics, but what I meant to say is, these are real people having real life conversation, real life decisions that should be left up to them, that we want to demonize because we put in these situations that the politicians don't bring that. I've never seen a conversation on abortion when they talk about, I talked to this young woman in Delaware that did this, and her husband had to make a decision on, do we keep this baby and potentially risk your life? That doesn't make any platform. So continue. My bad. That just hit my heart because we were talking about that, and just because I know when we talk about abortion, we are always talking about, well, if somebody gets raped, they got to keep the baby, yada yada yada.
No, I mean, I think we're hitting on so many things that are not being talked about in the Black community, right? Like, what is? I guess the question would be, there's 4 of us, and I believe in the power of. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, you just 4 people from high school, but I think that we have great power just being here now, the familiarity, the understanding we have of who we are. And I would ask you this: is like, if there is a way forward for Black people politically, what does it look like? You don't have to name a party, you don't have to name, but what does it look like that Black people's needs are served at a more real level, that, like, we're not like Tavares mentioned the issues with with Black women in pregnancy, and we've talked about the police. We just, what does it look like? What is the framework to be like, we could draw up our own party? What would that look like? What would be the beginnings of it? I understand we can't do the whole thing, but it's like, what would it be, right? Like, every now and then you have fools, you have someone like Kanye coming up with the birthday party, but that was just a ploy, right? That really wasn't a thing. Is there an agenda? Since they talk about, since Trump rolled out Platinum Plan, what is a real plan for Black Americans that we can say, you know what? This is really what we need? Because I think a lot of times, growing up, hey, vote Democrat, and that sounds good, or maybe they say, hey, think differently, vote Republican. But really, what is the end game? It's a shell game. What are you really getting out of it? How can you know what you're getting? The thing about the reason why people don't understand systemic racism is white people always win because the systems are built for white people. Like, whether or not Democrats or Republicans, like, it's still white privilege baked into that. They're baked into those policies. They're going to benefit them at some level, and it's going to be disadvantageous to you at other levels. So I think that's, the question I would ask. I don't necessarily know if you guys have an answer, but I just think, just hearing the different conversations you guys are saying, like, that's really what we need to be on, is like, what does that look like? And then if we can understand that, how do we push that out to get it, implemented?
I'll start with reinstituting the Voting Rights Act. That needs to be number one on our agenda, because the thing about it is, we've seen it, right? As soon as the Supreme Court came and said, nope, Voting Rights Act, that clause, it's no longer valid. It's not useful anymore. And so now states could pass all of these laws to disenfranchise, voter suppression, all of that without getting it cleared. That's the first thing that we need to have on there. So we need to reinstitute that, get that on the platform. And I'll say it, reparations needs to be in our platform. And not necessarily from a Dave Chappelle, I'm rich, like, not that, but reparations as in how are we going to really make up for 400 years of slavery, 200 or 100 years of Jim Crow? Like, how are we going to make up for that and get our Tulsas and Black Wall Streets back, and give ourselves equal footing again, so then we can come back and work. So those are the two that I think really, really make a difference. Then you talk about real criminal justice reform. Expunging all these marijuana charges and going back and taking marijuana off of the Schedule 1 list. So those are the things that very, very easily and very quickly can get us back on equal footing or somewhat on equal footing if we did just those four things.
Let me jump in. I want to say one thing. Somebody's going to buck at reparation. I want to give you something for all my Christian brothers out there. The Egyptians, when the Israelites were in Egypt for 400 years of slavery, they walked out of Egypt, right? Everybody knows about the parting of the Red Sea, and they know about going to the Promised Land and all this and that. But before they left, God said, "You're not going to leave empty-handed." He said, "I'm going to leave you with the Egyptians' gold. They give you the gold, silver, fine linens." Like, they walked out of Egypt, just they was kept, basically, like they had it all. And so I just believe that God believes in reparations. And I just want to say that because so many times you even have Black people who get tight and use the R word, like, I don't know, I don't really need nothing. I can do it on my own. I mean, I put myself by my own bootstraps, which is an oxymoronic statement anyway. Like, don't use that. Don't use that statement. It doesn't make sense. You can't do it. But I just wanted to give you props because that is so right and it's so biblical that people can't even handle it. Like, all these people talking about, well, you just, that's amazing. So thank you. I love it.
Well, they can handle it. They just can't handle it when it comes to Black people, because we've said several episodes ago on this show how other people have gotten reparations. It's just, whenever it comes, it's not just reparations. Anytime something is meant to benefit Black people, this country has an issue with it. So we just got to point that out first and foremost. I guess I'm going to yield my time to Ferg because Razi literally took my answer. The only thing that I would change is maybe don't call it reparations, because white people seem to have a big issue with that. So we can come up with a friendly name for it, like the Jonathan Carter bill or some real white name, and don't even really tell them what's in it.
We'll make it like an acronym, and it'd be like the CRAACA law.
So yeah, man, reparations and like Frank said, it's not just white people. It's too many Black people that are like, man, we don't need no reparations. We ain't gonna do nothing. We'll go buy a Cadillac. Don't worry about what I'm gonna buy with it. We need it. We need it. Go ahead, Ferg.
I don't know if it starts with politics, man. I'm like one step away from being a Black nationalist. So I feel like because I just don't trust the political system when it comes down to it. So I feel like we're going to have to do things on our own. So I think we have to have a plan to elevate our economic growth. And so I feel like so anything that can benefit us economically, especially like reparations, I think reparations, some SBA loans, more access to SBA loans and things like that to help grow the Black community within the Black community. Man, I'm just trying to think. Because
we can put all of that in the CRAACA bill. So you got to think about it. As long as we put all that in there, you can have SBA funding in there that's specifically for it. You can have home ownership. So hey, we're going to pay down payments on Black people's houses up to $50,000, $100,000 for Black home ownership. It'll be you can get $100,000, $50,000 to start a business through this process or whatever, only for Black people. But the problem is like Byron said, every time we earmark money for Black people, as soon as we say this is going to be for Black people, you start hearing the whole, oh, that's racist, that's reverse racism or whatever. Not that, oh no, but we built America on the back of that free labor. And so now you can't at least pay us back a little bit?
And can I just say this too? We ain't talking about people of color. We talking about black people. Well, I am. I don't know what Razi might be.
No, descendants of slaves.
Okay.
Like, no. I want descendants of slaves. And you know, you talk about we talked about Watchmen at one point, but that was a kind of cool way that they did it, is that they had the DNA test, and you had to you had to prove that you were descended from a slave to be able to get the reparations.
I think the next is education, access to better education. Something like our kids, they need it. They need catch up. We need to get them into these STEM programs, or is it STEAM now?
It's STEAM now. Yep. They put art back in it. Yep.
Yeah. So like we have to get that. Then also access to a lot of these I think programs like welding, and like there's money out there where we need to, if you don't give me money, my kids need to go to get an education for free. That goes back into your CRAACA program, Razi. Like my kids need to get education for free, whether they're going to a 4-year university, whether they want to take real estate classes, whether they want to become a welder, process technology. Like there's trade schools out there, become a truck driver, something to give them access to future wealth. And I think our school systems need to offer those things. And I don't know, man. That's the biggest thing, you know, back to your kind of what we were talking about earlier. Okay, Trump loses, Biden's in, now what? Like, what's going to change? And I think that's the argument that all these hoteps okay, so Trump loses, what's going to happen? We don't have a plan. We don't have anybody who's speaking directly to us. And
but that also goes, I hate to say it, but that also goes to their lack of understanding of politics and civil governance. The legislative branch is the one that actually controls all of that. Like you can't look at the executive branch and be like, what is the president going to change? You need to get out and vote for these senators and flip to Congress so that we can get these laws, so the CRAACA Act can actually get passed. And I actually got a name for it. It's continuously raising African Americans Culture Act. That is it. It's the CRAACA Act.
Oh man, all right, you won. So I got one more thing that to add to what Ferg said.
Sounds good though, don't it?
It does. So Ferg,
that's like an episode of Boondocks.
You said you were one step away from being a black nationalist, and I think that's very interesting because are you guys familiar with Claude? You guys familiar with Claude Anderson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you know, like if you've seen his talk, like do you think black people made a mistake in going for equality? That's one of his things. Made a mistake in going for equality instead of trying to be a protected class. Instead of saying we want to be equal, and then they say, okay, you equal, but you're not get equitable treatment. Like we didn't have the resources and the backing to really just be integrated into society. We got there and it was just like we couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Like we should have gone, his argument basically, we should have been a protected class like the Native Americans. Like give us our own give us our, not that they're in good shape now, but I'm saying give us our own and allow us to do things in a way that benefits us. Like, you know, they don't have to pay taxes and things like that. Is that something that you think would have benefited, not even saying we can go back to it, but would that have benefited black people, say when Martin Luther King was pushing for, you know, some of these things, like everybody wanted equality, everybody wanted to be able to eat at the, you know, lunch counters and all that was great. But like at the end of the day, did we do ourselves harm by trying to integrate ourselves into a dominant culture that really, even though laws changed, hearts never did?
It's an interesting question. William Roden wrote a book called $40 Million Slaves, and he kind of touches on that, but that's in the sports world where he says that we fought so hard to be integrated when we should have just focused on just getting more money for HBCUs or keeping the Negro League alive and things like that. Like, don't worry about integrating into Major League Baseball. Keep it at the Negro League level. But I think it's different otherwise because Native Americans, they got their own land. So unless we were going to ask for our own land, we have to live among these white people. And so I think, because I'm so hesitant to criticize people that, fought for the civil rights and fought for that kind of stuff. I think their line of thinking was, look, just treat us equally, give us equal access to education. We don't want our kids like reading out of these broken down books and broken down classrooms, broken down schools. Give us the access to the same school. You think about the Little Rock Nine or whatever. And that's what they were fighting for. So I guess in hindsight, that point can be made, but I digress.
I think it's a little both. And I guess I can't have my cake and eat it too. Because the Native Americans are still one of the most oppressed classes in the U.S. We overlook their struggle, but they are kind of self-sufficient to a certain extent. I look at other minority groups, and I feel like, and maybe I'm just biased because I travel in my circle, I feel like we're the only people asking for equality. And I feel like we got blindsided, or we got tunnel vision with that fight. Like, when will they see us as equal? When will they see us as equal? And that's all we were looking at, rather than, because we did have some strong Black communities that were decimated through integration. Like we were doing good. We wanted to do better. We should have asked for more support. I feel like we would ask for more support in what we were currently doing. Because if you look at other groups, they still have Jewish communities. There's still segments of the country where this is what they do, and then they send people out to make their mark in the world. But like, if you go in, I'm in Houston. There's a Nigerian community that operates in their Nigerian community. There's a Vietnamese community that operates in their Vietnamese community. There's a Mexican, like there's a Hispanic community, they operate within themselves. We're the main group that's always trying to find a way into the white man's world. And the Black community, for the most part, and I'm probably we might lose some listeners of, is the Black community is probably when you say that, it's almost a negative term. Like, when you think the Black community, there's a lot of negative connotations that come with that. When you start thinking about other communities, oh yeah, I went into the Korean community. This is what they have their stores. They have this. Like, I don't think we should have been protected, but I think we should have took what we had and work to become better at that, to build our education system, because HBCUs were producing the biggest and best within athletics, within academia, within the world. Mm-hmm. Our Black communities were doing their own thing. We were creating Black business. We had our own trades and stuff like that, and asked for government funding to build those things as we slowly worked our way to progression. Because I think other people, I feel like America has been blocking the Black community because while they're trying to block us, the Asians were like, they weren't asking for equality. They're just like, all right, we'll just pay attention to the Black people over there. Look over there. Look at the Black people. Don't worry about us. And now they're one of the most educated and economically the highest. I think
they have more flips when you talk about economic terms. So their money flips inside of their community more times than anybody else. Yeah. And
so, I'm sorry, my bad. I'm drinking too.
The only thing I want to talk through is, like Byron talked about, the hindsight of it all. We can't discount the civil rights movement and the integration and the equity, or the equity is what they're fighting for. The problem is they gave us equality. We didn't get equity. And so True. They were fighting for equity, and that fight is what allowed a lot of these other communities to be able to move. Like, we weren't the only people that got equality with the Civil Rights Act. Women were involved with it. A lot of those other communities that were still pushed to the side and weren't able to grow because of the white people kind of treating them the exact same way. Don't act like Asians and Chinese people weren't disenfranchised along with us.
I know they were. I'm not saying they weren't.
That they're able to do that. Nigerians are able to have their community because of the Civil Rights Act. They would never have been able to come over here and do what they do if it wasn't for that. And also, we have to think about, if we had gone the route of, okay, just give us a reservation, give us some money, leave us alone, and we'll grow, that doesn't work, because we saw what they do to African American communities, that they'll build interstates. Even back in the day, they won't put a train stop there. They'll put a train stop in the white area. So now you don't have access to being able to get goods moving in and out. Selma, perfect example. They could have made I-65. They could have made I-65 go through Selma. They was like, nope, I-65 will not go through Selma because it's a blacker community. Like things like that is what they would have done had we said, let's make this community and we're going to be black. Okay, you don't get the access to the overall economic engine of America and of the state if you do that. And also, when we talk about black business owners, black professionals, the thing was, we had black communities because we had to. We were compressed. We were redlined. All black people went into that area. So you did have a little bit better economic activity in that area for everybody. But there's still a bunch of poor people, and there's still a bunch of, better upper class black people. And the thing is, now those upper class black people just moved into upper class white neighborhoods, and the poor people are still there. So which is why people, when they think of the black community, they think about the poor community, because all the rich black people have gone into the richer areas. And it just so happens that there's more rich people because of systemic racism, historical wealth, and everything like that. But so you can't look at this as a microcosm or just like a single issue of, if we had separated, we would have been better off, because we would not have. I'll just kind of throw it out there like that.
No, I think that's good. I think it's funny because you were mentioning about I-65 and Selma. The reason why you can't, and Byron probably knows this, the reason why there's no metro to Georgetown is because they didn't want black people going to Georgetown back in the day. So that's historically been a thing. And the thing that a lot of this stems from is Brown versus the Board of Education. Once that happened, that's when a lot of, the red line and things happened. Was like, we're going to make sure that they don't, black people make it hard for them to get, access to these things. And like you said, so this is kind of like a hypothetical, but I think you guys have had some really good points. And I think these are the kind of conversations that we need to have versus like, hey, let's vote for Biden. And I'm not saying anything wrong with voting for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, right? And I also don't like the equivalency of saying, I don't like either candidate, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it does matter. When Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon are in the White House and Jeff Sessions, it matters. Sentiment matters. Something, you know what I'm saying? Like, it matters because things are worse to me. And this is my opinion. Maybe some people think it's great, but it's just like, I'm sorry, like, it does matter. You need to make a choice, even if it's not, your favorite guy. Like, I just think that's just the wrong mindset, because somebody's going to win. And people are like, I don't like either candidate, neither one of them is going to do anything. And it's like, no, they do something. There's a reason why, you've seen all this, not just even, I won't say the activity, but the sentiment of the country has changed. And I would say that voting for the top of the ticket matters, even if it's just for sentiment. From that standpoint, I know that people might say, that doesn't matter, but it's like, it does matter, because you see how the difference of getting a man like Donald Trump is in the office, and how he has weaponized language. And I'm going to go biblical here. The words are powerful. I know we had the sticks and stones break my bones, but words won't hurt me. That's the wrongest statement ever. Don't say it to your kids. It's not true. It's not right. Because how did God create the earth? In Genesis, he spoke. He spoke. Mm-hmm. And so he created man in his own image. So man has the same power. So when you say things, obviously you've heard the term power, life, death is in the tongue, but that is a real and true statement. You have the power to bind and loose things. So you hear the way he won't denounce white supremacy. That's letting the principality, demonic principality, into the atmosphere. He won't denounce it. He won't speak against it. And you think that's crazy, but it's not, because you look at what's happening. People say, that's, a religious thing. It's just your imagination. But I mean, for those who understand Christianity, we know that the unseen world is the more real world anyway. So everything we're seeing now is just a manifestation of things that are spiritual. And that's why we have this problem, because we don't even know how to fight against really what we're battling against. I mean, this is a different conversation for a different show maybe, but I just wanted to throw that out there just because I think there's a lack of understanding about sentiment and the top and leadership at the top. And even though God's on the throne, he can work through anything. If you read like Judges or you read Chronicles, there are different kings. And there was better times with better kings and worse times with worse kings. Yes, God was still there, but I don't want to just volunteer for a worse time with a worse king if I can avoid it. Like
they didn't vote on those kings.
Yeah. So I want to throw in and get a question in bringing us back to the election. I want to talk about third-party candidates on the national level. Because I've gone through all these states and a lot of these states are really, really close, especially these swing states. And then you go look at the third party candidate and they pulled more votes than one of the candidates are leading
trailing by. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Biden in Georgia, right? Jorgensen, I think, pulled like 30,000, 40,000 votes. And
I think she got like Biden, 60 some thousand. I think.
Yeah. And so it's less than what Biden is trailing by. So, it's one of those things that, how do you guys feel about third party voting on like these big national scale, elections? Well,
it's people. I know I made the statement last week that I do care who you vote for, so I'm not going to tell you to go vote if you're not voting for the person I want to win. But at the end of the day, it's your right to, vote for who you want to. It's just that this year in particular, like I want him out of office so bad that I just felt like if there's any time to say, you know what, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to, because people don't like to hear this. You are wasting your vote. You're wasting your vote until there is a major change in our political system. We have two major parties. Okay. So you're wasting your vote. And those 60,000 people in Georgia, like Joe Biden could have flipped that. It looked like it's going to go to Trump. So you wasted your vote. And I just think in this year particular that I would have liked for everyone to pick a side, preferably Joe Biden's side. And also, if you're one of those people that voted third party, you kind of can't be on here complaining about how close the election is or how come Trump didn't lose by a wider margin, because even if you didn't vote for Trump, if you voted for a third party this year in particular, in my opinion, it's essentially a vote for him. Because any vote that Biden didn't get was pretty much a vote for Trump. Because what we talked about on the show, we know his supporters are going to show up. Mm-hmm. They're going to come through. So I'm against it this year in particular.
Frank, I'm going to let you go.
Okay, so I have a different take. So I think third-party candidates are fine. I think they should be developed mostly down ballot, though. I think that the idea that you're going to get a presidential, I think the presidential run, it takes so much infrastructure, so much money that you really can't. I mean, Jorgensen was, I give her, I guess, credit. She was on every ballot, but she didn't have much money for a campaign. I didn't see any ads for her. Did anybody see them? I mean, I didn't know it was a woman. Honestly, till you guys said she, I was like, oh, Jorgensen just could be anybody. So I think down ballot, though, is where you develop the grassroots. Like, hey, if there's a Bread and Roses party in Maryland, don't ask me why it's called that. But if you have a Bread and Roses, running for county executive or for some smaller district, thing, you can develop maybe a third party. I think that, but I just don't think that nationally is going to take hold. I think it's just too hard. I think the two-party system, they're locked in. I mean, they control a lot of the way the elections go. Like if a third party was to be able to exist, that would change a lot of things. And that's why even when you remember Jesse Ventura, when he was an independent and he won, he could do nothing. Like, he did absolutely nothing when he got elected. I can't remember what state he ran and was in, but it's just like, I think that
Minnesota.
So I'm just saying, like, there has got to be an infrastructure. And I think the independent sounds so good. Like there's a lot of things we need to debunk. I think we're doing a great job. First of all, I love you guys because there's so many Black people, especially Black men, who don't really know what's going on. And we just kind of have this idea that we say some talking points that sound good. It's like, but it don't make sense, man. Like, look, it's like you cannot just being independent doesn't, I'm not saying you can't be independent thinking, but you need to find a party so you can actually vote in the primaries. Because think about most states, if you're independent, you can't even vote in any of the primaries, right? Unless there's an independent candidate, which there's probably not. So you're either just waiting for whatever comes through. I'd rather have a say. I'd rather try to push for maybe open primaries. That'd be another topic. But just the idea that I'm now just kind of voting, in the general election, it's like I don't have a say over who comes out. I think that the independent idea sounds good. It makes you feel confident. But honestly, most independents actually end up leaning one way or the other. I'm not going to say, but I'm just saying, like, I kind of feel like there's not as much independence. It's just like you don't want to label. It's just almost like the contrarianism. Oh, I don't label myself. I'm an independent voter. It's like, oh, bullshit, because it's not as if independent structure is really making changes in America, right? Like, where's the independent candidate that went and changed America? I'll wait, right? Like, and I think we have to educate ourselves. Like, go ahead and go be all in Republican, right? Or do, or be, Democrat at the national level, right? But what I'm saying is there is a movement, like I talked about with you guys, where if you could do something smaller, like some of the things you mentioned, county, state, city. There are some agenda points that I think Black people should work hard to put together at a grassroots level. And that's why I kind of asked the question at the beginning, like what could be put together, not for like this national platform to run in 2024, but for where you could go and actually build up something. It takes, a good 5 to 6, 7 years to build up a nice movement, like locally. Like you could do it, but what I'm saying is a national campaign, like it could take decades for that. And you don't have time for that. Like you're not really going to do that. And especially when these other two parties have been here and they have a reason to kind of, it's easy for them too, right? If I'm a Republican and Democrat, like they complain, but at the end of the day, their job is easy. Like Democrats know they can get, alternative lifestyle people, mostly Black people, Jewish people, and maybe some atheist people, right? Or people who don't identify with religion and anything like that. And the Republicans know, hey, we can go after Christians, we can go after wealthy, we can go after, people, business owners, people who think they're business minded, even if they're not. And so, I guess Democrats kind of lean towards women a little bit, but I guess what I'm saying is it's easy for them to pick the other side. They say, well, what do you pick? We'll pick the other team, right? It's like, it's like two people picking teams. Oh, I'll pick him. And you pick a third person in there. You have to be like, ooh, what am I going to focus on? So I think that the two-party system benefits the two parties so much that they like we were talking about, they would freeze out. So it's really the idea of nationally top of the ticket. You need, as Byron said, you need to pick somebody because you're throwing your vote away. But down ballot, if you want to develop candidates, you want to be like a grassroots Green Party. We had Kristen Bracey on our show and she talked about some local stuff, and that's cool. That's really good. But don't vote for Jill Stein and tell me that you're making a difference because I just don't see it. I don't understand it. Or vote for, what's the other guys? The Gary Johnson, was that him 4 years ago with the,
4 years, yeah.
I'm gonna legalize weed. Like, I'm gonna legalize weed. Like, oh man,
yeah.
Oh, man.
It's funny you say that. So, and I promise I'll never use this guy as a reference ever again. But I grew up under this guy, and this image pops up in my head every once in a while. So it might have been the first episode of The Cosby Show, and Theo was making this speech about being a regular person and just to love me for me. And to me, one of my favorite Bill Cosby quotes was, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life." That's how I feel about independence on a national level. Like, that's about the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my goddamn life. Like, you're not, like, Frank's, name a time when they made a difference. You have to come up with a better strategy. I saw this, the best way I've ever seen an independent on a national level depicted was almost what you were saying, what Frank, about picking teams, is it was somebody picking teams, and they were playing basketball. So they had like all these people with basketball gear on, and then it had somebody that was dressed up for football. Like you're not in this game. You're not in the right. Like you don't belong here. Like this is not where you're going to make your impact. Like they had a helmet, shoulder pads, football in their hand. Is like you're not here for the right thing. Like on a local level, down ballot, I think it's perfect. If we're going to make a change as a community, we need to do something like that to the point where we gain enough momentum where one of these parties, like, you know what? It's almost like maybe we need to buy these people out. Maybe we need to hitch our wagon to this third party team that the black people are leaning towards on this local level, where we can get their local support and possibly get their national support. So we hear their local cries, and we're going to turn this into a national movement. Almost like getting bought out, you know. But on a national level, who was Ross Perot independent? I feel like he was the biggest, and to me he had the best chance of ending independent. He in himself was a joke.
Yeah,
you know. So like,
I'll say this. I think we all talked about down ballot. I definitely agree. I think third party makes sense on a local level, very local level, down ballot, where you can really get to those. What is the fine minutia of a platform, right? I feel like what would be best served for these independents and third party candidates is not to have a candidate, but have a platform and basically endorse, say, hey, we have 60,000 votes in Georgia. I have 45,000 votes in Milwaukee or Minnesota. And guess what? And a bunch of money. And guess what? I'm going one way or the other. And now all my Green Party folks are going to vote for one candidate because this is the one we're endorsing, and we're going to go. Because Kristen, right? She was talking to us about the Green Party, and she told us, she was like, the Democratic platform is basically the Green Party platform from 4 years ago. And if you do that and say, hold it over and say, hey, the Green Party is going to endorse you, but this needs to be on your platform. This needs to be on the Green Party's platform, needs to be on your platform, or we're not going to endorse you. And then we talk about Ice Cube, do the Ice Cube. Here's the Green Party platform. Who's getting it? Who's getting it? And the Republican or Democrat, we as the Green Party don't care. Who's getting, as long as you support our platform, here's the one we're going to endorse. Now our army of people is coming for the presidency.
That would take strategy. Or you can just be Democrat and just get the black votes anyway. Which actually the 18% black males, and we still have some black women out there voting Republican, that, and maybe this will wake the Democrats up though. So I want to leave on this. Get back to the current election, current Trump-Biden. Does Trump winning or Biden winning, and maybe I'm looking too much into this, benefit the Republican Party more?
I think,
you see where I'm going with that? Like,
I don't think anything changes because even with as wild and crazy as he was, he nearly won. I mean, as long as these numbers hold, he nearly won. He won the first time. It didn't hurt the Republican Party. They gained seats in the House. They gained seats in the House. They did not lose their Senate majority, so it seems. So they effectively was able to, through him, get 3 Supreme Court nominees, get all of these federal judges appointed. So it's really a good night for them. So
but he's done his damage.
If Trump loses, it doesn't even matter because they have set themselves up. They're good. And if they keep the majority in the Senate, they can block so much of what Joe tries to do. Like, they're going to have to at least convince one Republican to come to the Democratic side to get anything done.
What about you guys?
I mean, I think that definitely it benefits, if Trump losing actually benefits the Republicans, to me, longer term, because the thing is, even though, here's the thing, Trump almost won, right? But 4 more years of Trump and this pandemic, the way he's handling it, the way he was handling it so poorly, if we had let him run it to ground, he would have almost done maybe what George W. Bush did, where it's like by the time he got out, Republicans would be like, man, we can't even rock with you. So like, it was like when Obama, came after George W. Bush. So now the Republicans are kind of like, yes, we gained seats. We kept the majority in the Senate. Let's get rid of Trump, because they couldn't really control Trump. So they're good with what he did, but they don't want him because he can't be controlled. So they're like, good, get this insurgent out of here. We'll let the Democrats have 4 years. We'll bring up likable candidates. We'll bring Nikki Haley or Larry Hogan from Maryland, who some people say that he's a rhino, but he has done well in a Democratic state. He won governor twice. That's where I live. And he's done a good job as a governor, too. I will say that. I really will say that. And I voted for him the second time he ran because I felt like he was the best candidate, and he has been a good candidate. So I think there's a little bit of understanding at a gubernatorial level, and sometimes like this guy had the best interest of Maryland at heart, especially when it comes to pandemic. What I say all this to say is the Republicans can make modest gains and then reboot with better, easier to market candidates, because if you're able to put up, say Tom Cotton and Nikki Haley or Larry Hogan or some other names that I may not be mentioning, they're not going to have the gaffes that Trump did. There's not going to be a tape of Larry Hogan grabbing somebody's or saying he did that, or Nikki Haley twerking in the club. Like, there's not going to be any impropriety. So they're going to be able to market themselves again on the moral majority platform, and they're going to, deride whatever the Democrats do. Because the Democrats, and I said this on the last show, Democrats, man, they need to get a backbone and just like try to do some things. Because I think the clip you played from Newsroom, I know you posted it. My wife showed me. I'm not on Facebook, but she was scrolling through her timeline. Like, if liberals are so smart, why do they always lose? I feel like that is such a beautiful understanding of like, the Democrats don't know how to take advantage of a situation, even when it falls into their lap. Like, the only reason they win sometimes to me is because Republicans messed it up so bad.
And I was just going to say that. They win because of luck.
They win, because it's like Biden really didn't campaign on all that much except for, hey, this is a pandemic killing you. You got people piled up in refrigerator trucks, and I'm not Trump. And that actually is good enough because being dead actually matters. I know that some people may not care about it. Herman Cain didn't care about it, but living matters to most people, or maybe most people. But what I'm saying is it moved enough. I said this on the last episode. If the pandemic hadn't happened, Trump would be reelected right now.
Yes.
It would already be called. It would already be over.
Yeah.
The only thing that you see move the needle at all was the pandemic, because everything else just seems to have been ignored. Right?
Yep.
So yeah, to me, Republicans are secretly like, they're not going to be behind this recount, right? They're like, look, you can try to do a recount. We don't really want you to really win, because the sooner we get rid of you, the sooner we can get back control of our party. That's the thing Republicans like more than anything. They like control. And Trump, even though, he has done a lot of things that they really are going to be like, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to say that. We don't want you. But the danger about Trump is he's also shown them some things they can push, but learn how to say it a little bit better or do it a little bit better, right? Because he was so brazen. Like, he went out there and was doing so much stuff. It was like, oh, don't do that. Wait, that actually worked. Okay, let me take a note of that. But now let me get somebody who I can control and use that same agenda and have a more sinister plan. So I think that, this is a victory for the Republicans. It really is.
Yeah. They should be tired of having a person that they're afraid of too. Like, they're literally afraid of this guy. And because of I'm not going to say his name, but because of what he did to a potential presidential candidate in 2016 and what he said about his wife, and that man did nothing about it, said nothing about it, and supports him, that has to be fear. Because the fact that Trump didn't catch them hands, it got to be fear. They are afraid of him. So I'm sure they're tired of being ruled by fear and just want to get him out of it.
Yeah. Razi, what you got?
I agree with everything everybody's saying. I mean, I definitely think they are happier with this outcome than anything else that other than, Trump staying in and them retaining all their seats. But that was just kind of a pipe dream that they were going to just do that. They had a really, really good night based off their expectations. It's one of those things that I joked when third quarter came around and earnings reports came out and everyone's like, we hit our adjusted earnings. I'm like, well, yeah, you adjusted them down because of COVID and then you hit them. That's not really hitting your earnings projections. So this is exactly what happened here. It's like their projections were so low that they came out looking squeaky clean. Like, oh, this was a good night for us, like you guys are saying. And so I think this is a perfect time for them to tweak their dog whistles. Like Frank, you said it, Trump said it so brazenly that our 16%, I don't know how we got up to 6 or what got up to 18 from 16%. Like, how does black support go up with all this that Trump did? But like you said, I think the Republicans can probably get 20% of the black vote because their dog whistles are going to come and they're going to be more subtle. And so now you don't have the Republicans hate black people speech that comes with it, because now it's going to be more veiled. They're going to be really good at passing laws that disproportionately affect us, but they can pass it as, we're just trying to grow the economy. You have as equal opportunity to be able to use this stuff as we do. And so I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Republican Party to, like you said, get control of the party, bring everybody back home, reset, get smart in the next 2 years. I don't even think they're worried about the next presidential election. 2 years. I think what they want to do is they want to take back the House in 2022.
Yes.
And so I think they're in a better predicament to do that now, because they truthfully, they like running the Congress more than they like the running the executive branch.
So I think they are in the perfect position. They couldn't script this any better themselves. Like, it was just, yeah, Trump, we supported you. Hey, we stuck behind you. Yeah, make America great. Yeah. But 4 more years of Trump meant 4 more years of kowtowing to him, being ridiculed, being, I think the next election 4 more years of Trump would have had the next election of Democrats coming out crazy. For one, Biden's not a strong candidate. So he's our incumbent. So if they can find a good Republican candidate, they can block Biden over the next 4 years and say you were in for another 4 years and still didn't do shit.
Yeah. And you got to think, he'll be like 80 at that point.
And here's our new fresh candidate, because you got to think, they're not going to have. Trump had supporters. The Republicans didn't have supporters. There's Republicans and there's fucking Trump supporters. 2 separate things. And when Trump goes, Trump is essentially the Jerry Jones of the political party. He has people who feel like, America's team is Make America Great Again. It's not synonymous with football. It's not synonymous with football. It's not synonymous with politics or the Republican Party. Trump is a party amongst itself. And like you've all said, now they get their party back. They get 4 years to sabotage Biden.
Yeah.
They get 4 years to just say, you know what? We told you so. He still didn't do anything. He didn't do anything more. The rhetoric is going to be, he didn't do anything more than Obama did. And y'all loved Obama. So Biden could lose in 4 years. This is if he wins today. And by the way, I don't know if you saw they're protesting in Arizona already. But this is perfect for them, because if Trump would have won, they would have had a hell of a time getting those people back. And I feel like this is a perfect situation for them. I'm not scared of 2024 because I think it'll be back to business as normal, and whoever president is not really going to make a difference to us as long as he's not a chauvinistic, racist, freaking sociopath. And I don't know who that would be unless Trump Jr. runs. But hopefully he goes to jail. Hopefully they all go to jail. But that's my thing. Is like, I don't think people realize, like, I'm fearful still of the results because there's all these lawsuits and stuff going on. But I think Mitch McConnell and everybody else is going to be like, when it comes down to it, they're like, you know what? I mean, we lost this one. You know, we just got to take it on the chin. And like, if they really supported Trump, they would be raising as big as kicking up as much sand as he is. But Republicans are not coming to his aid.
Well, we'll see, because I've seen Republicans say the right thing and sit on their hands, and then when it comes down to it, they don't deter him like they should. So we'll see.
But that's if he's in power. If he has a chance to go out, like if we still got 2.5 more months of him. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I do want to say one last thing. 2022, 34 Senate seats are up for grabs, and it looks good for the Republicans because a lot of them are like deep red. There's like maybe 3 or 4 that the Dems can steal, and that's only because Biden came so close to winning that state, like Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania. But like Richard Shelby in Alabama, he ain't gonna lose. You know what I'm saying? So the Republicans may have the majority of this entire presidency of Joe Biden, and I think it's only going to be one term for him. You got to pull a James Polk and let Kamala run that next 4, because I just don't see him doing the second one.
I do think that's their plan.
Yeah,
is Kamala being him not taking a second term.
Right.
Like I said, he'll be 80.
Yeah.
He's not going to make it through another 4 years. Like that
Right.
is nobody from the Democratic Party is going to be like, yeah, let's put him on the ticket at 80 years old and make him, gallivant around the country, trying to campaign.
Yeah, running for president is hard. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
So I don't see that happening. So I definitely see Kamala coming in.
He looked rough today when he made his speech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, this dude might pass out.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna go ahead and close it out, fellas. What's parting shots, man? What you got for us?
Hey, man, vote for the CRAACA Act. That's all I got to say.
Lord have mercy. That's a thing, huh?
It's a thing now. Okay. It's a thing.
The CRAACA. I support it, brother. Just great having you on, Frank, man. Appreciate you coming on. Enjoyed this. I hope the listeners learned something. I forgot to tell you too, Frank, your cousin, Montrez Slater, check in. He hit me up a couple of weeks ago and was like, man, I need y'all to put out an episode, man. I haven't been paying attention to politics like I should, and I relied on y'all. And that was like right before our last episode that we dropped, man. So shout out to you, Slate, man. I hope you enjoyed that episode and you tuned in to this one. But I just want to reserve the time for Ferg and Frank, so you guys hit us with the parting shots.
Well, I'm gonna make this. I'm trying to make it quick, man. I know last episode I said I was going to possibly volunteer at the polls and help protect voters and stuff like that, which I didn't. I'm actually disappointed in myself, and really was disappointed in myself for not doing that, just because I think part of it was somewhat part fear, part of self-preservation, just because I just don't trust what's going on in this country right now. And when I have to sit there and think about, like, I'm not confident enough to volunteer at the polls just because I'm in Texas. I go crazy. They had a Trump train right around the polls a few days ago. And I don't know. So I hope this Trump train is derailed. By the time you hear this episode, hopefully we have a 46th president. I guess 45th and a half, because I really can't count Trump as a true president. So I want to thank Frank for coming on, man. We're going to have to bring you back on a lighter note and really just be able to make you more of a regular on our show, on our political episode, maybe around the inauguration or something, because I'll be up there for inauguration. That's the plan. But what do you have for us, Frank? Close us out.
Man, just again, thank you guys for just putting together this platform. I think a lot of times, again, there's not enough of this. Again, speaking to these issues as Black men and speaking to them well, right? Like coming up with things like that. The CRAACA Act, I mean, I think as I've known Razi, so long, and we were in Gifted, and he really is gifted, right? And I think that's what it takes, right? Like, and Tavares, obviously, I know, just from being in, advanced class with you and Byron, just working with you on Politically Entertaining for, the 4 or 5 years we've done the show. this is really what makes a difference. And we have to, like you said, I definitely appreciate working, coming on the show later, but just figuring out a way we can do other things together, working at other avenues is really how we're going to make it happen. Like a lot of times you look at people on TV and you see this group, oh yeah, they made it. But it's just like, I'm convinced that there's not 4 people that collectively would know as much as we know about the things we know about. And we have to take advantage of that and not just let that, slip by. So I'm not prophesying what we're going to do, but I'm just saying, hey, let's not let this just be a passing thing where we did an episode. Let's see if there is something bigger that we can do. So I just want to leave with that. Again, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me talk. I love to talk because my wife, whenever I try to tell her to listen to my episode, she's like, I don't want to hear your episode because I know everything you're going to say because you just talk all the time anyway. So I appreciate being able to be on the show unfiltered. And like I said, I love you guys. And like I said, I'll be back on soon.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming, man. And we'll definitely have you on soon. This is Three Brothers No Sense with a splash of PE on there. November 4th, the day after the election. Hopefully, like I said, by the time this airs, we will have a new president. Listen, like, share, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, listen again. And listen to PE as well, politically entertaining.
Support the CRAACA Act.
Support the CRAACA Act. Support the CRAACA Act. We're out.